When it comes to playing Pantheon, few decks are as well positioned as Arisanna to dominate the playing field. And today we'll be upgrading the Pantheon pre-constructed Arisanna deck and seeing how we can take that deck further. So Arisanna is a fan favorite, but sometimes it struggles when it's playing the Astra version in the standard format because it can be a bit slow, or it turbos to 3 and then loses a lot of influence. Well, in Pantheon you don't really have this problem. And the fact that even though you're playing a singleton format, Arisanna has a custom-made card to circumvent that whole issue. And that card obviously is Polaris. Polaris is an amazing card that generates Cosmic Bolts. And Cosmic Bolts are obviously your win condition in most Astra Arisanna decks. And the fact that you can play this and generate as many Cosmic Bolt tokens as you want, depending obviously on how many times you have, on how many refinement counters you have on the card, is amazing. And you can just constantly deal damage almost every single turn and clear out an entire table of players. So in that sense, Arisanna is fantastic. But today let's see how we can make this deck as optimized as possible, within reason obviously, because you don't want to really alienate the table of players. You don't want to be try-harding in a Pantheon casual format. So we have some good choices of cards in here, but at the same time, you might want to sub out or sub in or sub out some certain cards to weaken or increase the power level of this deck to match the kind of the sentiment, the playing field, the level of play that other players in your community want to face, basically. So starting off with the boons first, we have the lesser boon of Parvati and the greater boon of Show. This is still a proxy because I have not yet gotten my hands on this card, but this is an SR from Audio and you can get it from there. So obviously this card you play because you want to survive for longer. It gives you 6 durability counters on your Pantheon barrier and lets you live longer, basically, because as I said, Arisanna is a slower deck. Greater boon of Show is a card that's amazing because it gives you what you lack usually in the standard format, which is constant free glimpsing. When this is out, at the beginning of your recollection phase, you get to glimpse 2. And you do this every single turn. And with the addition of another card in the material deck, you'll be glimpsing even more. And you will see that in Pantheon, Arisanna doesn't really struggle at all to glimpse and get that engine started. Not at all. And you'll see why with this card and many of the other cards in this deck. For the material deck, we have Spirit of Wind, 1, 2, and 3, obviously. So Spirit of Wind is debatable. I personally think it's the best choice for Arisanna, but you could, since it's Pantheon, you could experiment and play Water, for example. Fire, I'm not so sure, but Wind I think is a really good choice, obviously. And then we have some key cards in the material deck. 3 Astra cards and Polaris itself, the infamous card. So Cosmic Astroscope, you know this card, basically lets you rest it, glimpse 3. You do it every turn basically, and it's the driving engine of your deck. You want to protect this card as much as possible. Orbiting Cosmos is very cool because every time you would glimpse, it lets you glimpse +1. So remember the boon we spoke about? It lets you glimpse 3 every turn. Same thing with this. You want to glimpse 3, you glimpse 4. So it just increases your ceiling so much with this deck, and it makes it much more powerful, much more resilient, much more consistent. Lunar Conduit is amazing. Usually you want to bring this out first before you start doing your shenanigans, your glimpsing shenanigans and your Astra shenanigans. You bring this out so you can accumulate counters on it. This way you can start having an additional source of damage in your deck that's besides the Cosmic Bolts, obviously. Then Polaris obviously is the key card. If you're playing a water opponent, if you have a water opponent in your pod, don't really activate this. They can either negate it, or since it enters rested, they will simply fracturize it, and you cannot dodge it. You cannot rest it, banish it to dodge the targeting, basically. So be very careful about that, because without Cosmic Bolts, this deck struggles a lot, and you will struggle big time to close games or even survive. So definitely be careful how you play this card. Next, we have some utility cards, 4 utility cards. These are obviously interchangeable, but I'll explain the reasoning for each. So Alcahest obviously is a good utility card because it lets you out items or weapons. And having this on command from the material deck is really good because obviously again we're in a singleton format. So it's always good to have this card. Obviously what you would do is you would sacrifice a level herb to go to level 4 when you're at level 3, and you're able to activate this effect. Level 4, banish it and destroy something. Tariff Ring, this is not an amazing choice. Ideally, I would put Art of War here because you want to slow down the opponents. You don't want anyone like rushing. Like, you want to take away, basically, you want to give everything summoning sickness. That's it. You want to slow down the game. However, if you do that, you are very likely to be public enemy number 1, and people will start targeting you in the early game, or they'll target your stuff just out of spite. So if you don't want to be a toxic player in the pod, I would not put Art of War. You can put Terraforming, you can put GCR, Lost Providence, whatever. I've not put a Divine Relic in this deck so far. As I said again, I want to match the level of the players in my community, and I think this is fine for what I'm doing, for what I'm playing basically, but it's up to you again. Equinox Hour is just a staple of Pantheon, a really cool card. And then we have Ingredient Punch, because remember, your level 2 has an inherited effect where you can sacrifice 2 herbs of the same name to draw a card. So this lets you gather every turn basically, to make sure that you have a supplementary draw engine. Alright, now going to the main deck. We'll start with the Pantheon cards. Now, not all of these obviously are Pantheon exclusive cards, but they are cards that are geared towards the Pantheon experience. Obviously we have Sanctified Paladin. You open this in your opening hand, it's an amazing card. You draw 2, you have a big body. Pendant of Cruel is a massive value generator. You play it early, you play it mid-game, it's amazing. You force players to pay your tax, otherwise you get counters and you draw cards. Shared Fervor is a card that I say hold on to it when you can, because the crowd's favor is such an amazing thing. It's so amazing to get the crowd's favor, especially in Arisanna, because it will first off dissuade people from attacking you and targeting you with effects and such. And you can use it in the late game to protect yourself. Maybe if one player is down, you use this card, you get the crowd's favor. Now you have such an edge over your opponent, and they'll really struggle to go through your interruptions and your damage and the pressure you will put. Stocked Outpost is cool. I mean, it's just a draw card. If they want to attack it to get a draw, fine. I mean, draws are plentiful in Pantheon. You're not really starved for draws. And if they end up attacking it and getting a draw of it, it's fine. That's 4 damage that could have gone to face, and you prevent it in that way, so that's fine. Next we have the guides. These are like kind of self-explanatory, except this one, but I'll explain. Obviously Dungeon Guide, you want to have the Dungeon Guide. You can like turbo to 3 sometimes, turbo to 2 even, doesn't matter. Heavenly Guide is amazing in this format. If anyone in the pod has used Dungeon Guide, you get to go to 3 for free. Academy Guide in the early game is amazing because you have the barrier obviously protecting you if you have maybe a taunt or such. This will let you reduce all of your materializations of champions by 1, which is amazing. If you can get this to stick, it's amazing. Morgan is a flex card, but I just want to clump it here with the guides. Obviously, it can protect itself. It prevents opponents from recovering. So if you are likely to have a Xander in your pod, which you are very likely to have because it's a Pantheon precon, you prevent them from recovering. And at the beginning of your recollection phase, you glimpse 1, and if you don't, you recover 1. So either if you have the orbital regalia, you get to glimpse 2 every turn with this, besides your boon, besides your other cards, or you can recover. It depends on what you have. So in this deck, this card is really good. Next we'll move to our defensive cards. So some of them will be familiar, some will be a bit weird. So we'll start with these 4 over here. We have obviously Stalwart Fieldmate, Sovereign Sanctuary, Imperial Countermeasures, and Healing Aura. This is, in the standard format, this is a horrible card. But I mean, if you can stick this in the early game, it'll give you a heal 1 every turn. It's Fantasia. You pay 3 for it, and you get a heal 1 every turn. This is a float and defensive card. This protects your entire board and gets the value back when it expires. And this is obviously a prevent 4 damage, and it draws to replace itself. So you're not really going neg in that sense. For defensive cards, we have Library Witch, Angel Attendant, which is basically a souped up Library Witch, Nascent Barrier, which is such a custom card for Arisanna, Resolute Stand, never go wrong with that, and Spell Shield Astra. So these are the defensive cards in this deck, and they will help you survive basically, and in addition to the other cards, they're kind of defensive / sustain cards. Now for the herb and potion component of the deck, we have Harvest Herbs, simple straightforward card. We have Tend the Land, Floral Arrangement, Decompose, Forging Servant, Automated Gardener, and obviously Fertile Grounds. So what do these cards do? Basically, this is just a gather and a float, gather and a draw, summon 2 of the heal herbs, sacrifice something that's about to die and get herbs equal to the number of its life stat. You basically gather that many times, just gather and a float and a 1/2 body. Same with this one, but this is not a float, it's a 2/3 body, instead it costs more. And obviously the MVP, we have Fertile Grounds, which will give you constant value every turn. The earlier you get this out, the better. Because especially with Ingredient Pouch, you can basically kind of guarantee a draw 1 every single turn. So ingredient pouch will usually give you a herb at the beginning of your turn, usually like on the materialization stack or prereq, and then this will duplicate that herb. So that's like a draw engine you get every single turn. And yes, one more herb generating card. We have Apothecary's Harvest. You play this at level 3. It gives you 1 herb of every single type. So you will get all 6. You know the board, you get all 6 of them. As for some supplementary cards, we have Serum of Wisdom, Distilled Atrophy, Wild Growth Elixir, Alpha Filter Beast, and Stellar Bloom. Basically, these cards are kind of part of this style of play in the deck. So Serum of Wisdom is simple. You brew for 3 herbs, or you pay 3 for it. You get to glimpse 3 and draw a card into memory. You can save this usually until you go to level 3 because the glimpse comes in handy. Then you can start and do all that. Distilled Atrophy is very cool because especially against decks like Rai, against decks like Merlin, Kingslayer Merlin, you can reduce their level, and if you reduce them to 0 or less, you do damage to the number of H counters on this potion, which really comes in handy. It's really cool because if you bring this out, it'll keep accumulating H counters and it'll be like a constant threat. They have to out it, and you can just sack it and do some damage. Wild Growth Elixir is very cool as well because you bring it out and then it accumulates H counters every turn, and whenever you want, you can sacrifice it and put the number of counters that were on this card become buff counters on an ally. So you can really combine this with something like the Alpha Filter Beast or any ally you have and just kind of surprise the opponent with damage. Alpha Filter Beast is amazing. It's such a cool card. You either need to play it for 3, you usually don't want to play it for 3, you usually want to brew it for 3 herbs. And when it enters, it gets 2 H counters, and basically every H counter acts as kind of a buff counter because you get 1 power and health for it. So when you brew this, it enters as a 4/5 ally. And then, whenever an opponent activates a card with reserve cost 3 or more, you put another H counter on it. So this is the entire turn rotation. Every time a player activates a 3 reserve cost card or more, you get more H counters on this. It keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where it usually can survive your Polaris, even though usually you would have used the Polaris earlier, but if you haven't, usually it could possibly survive your Polaris. Amazing card. Stellar Bloom is just kind of more fits in with the gimmick. If you star call it, it costs 2, or you can play it for free, obviously with your level 3. You just basically, it's a gather 4 card, it's very simple. Now, for our long-term value engines, we have these cards over here. We have 5. So remember, this is a deck where you want to take it easy. You want to build a big board, build kind of like a factory of sense. Like, you just want to build presence. You want to by the end of the game, if you survive, your entire playmat is going to be filled with cards. And it will take a bit of, let's say, brain power to keep track of all the triggers, all the cards you have, all the interactions you have. But that's what's cool about Pantheon. You get to do these things. You won't die in like 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns, whatever. Games go on for a long time, which is really amazing and lets Arisanna's power and unique identity shine. So Palatial Concourse is very simple. It's just a domain that says at the beginning of your collection phase, glimpse 1. Obviously, with this regalia, it becomes a glimpse 2. So the value you get over time is amazing. Lunar Seer is classic, rested, glimpse 2. Same thing with the regalia. This card is very simple. At the beginning of your end phase, you summon an Astra shard token, which is basically this, which you can sacrifice to glimpse 2. Again, with the regalia, it's a glimpse 3. And if you imbue it, it gets stealth. So basically, it will survive on the board and get you a free Astra shard token every single turn. Pure Materia, very classic card. If you brew it, it will make your damage output much higher, and it will give you constant draws, constant basically value. And then we have this amazing new card, Starlit Apothecary. It lets you copy herbs, it lets you copy potions every turn, unless an opponent pays 4. So the value generation of this is amazing. Obviously in this deck we're not playing a lot of potions, we're mostly playing herbs. But if you are playing the potion version, it's even better. But still, this is worth playing, because it will give you the herbs you need to get effects, sacrifice, brew, draw cards, etc. So for consistency cards, we have Benediction Angel. Straightforward, basically lets you draw into memory and recover. Fast Cure, you can use the healing, but we mostly use it for the float. However, remember that you can pick any player in the pod that has more influence than you, so that you can get the recover effect, which is the cool thing about Pantheon. Let's try this guys. Glimpsing and drawing, getting a spell from grave, which is obviously in a singleton format really good. And we have Mnemonic Charm, draw into memory, then sack it to empower 2 whenever you want, which obviously comes in clutch with stuff like Dawn's Reversal. Additionally, we have these We have Scout the Land, another classic. Astra Sight, +1 if you start call it obviously. Celestial Navigation, Glimpse 5 and it's a float. And we have Indolent Leisure. You can either play this at level 3 to get a draw into hand and a draw into memory, or you can play it before you reach level 3 by stacking a level herb to cheat level 3 base to get the level counter, and resolve this earlier, which comes in clutch. Now for utility cards, obviously being a win deck, you have a lot of utility cards. We have the classic, Dream Fairy, Zephyr, you know what these cards do by now. This is cool. So the reason I'm playing this one and not the Dissipation, I think it's called Dissipation, the new basically board wipe for all Fantasias, because we play Fantasias in this deck and we don't want to wipe our old Fantasia cards. Ensnaring Fumes, classic, it can really come in clutch. And remember, 5 costs might seem like a lot, but this is Pantheon. You'll usually have a lot of cards in hand. It doesn't really matter. Ravaging Tempest, this one is more expensive, it's an 8, but again with efficiency, so you can reduce it, especially with the level counters and such. Then we have these cards, we have some Astra cards over here, we have classic Horti counter with the herbs and the hand size comes in clutch. Astral Seal, see if they have something in their banish and it matches it, becomes a free card. And then we have Cataleptic Constellation, cool card, it's not amazing, this could be cuttable to be honest. If you imbue it, you can imbue it for 2 basically, and on enter you rest an ally and doesn't wake up as long as it's on the field, so it's kind of like a snow fairy in a sense. And then if it was imbued, you get 2 Astral Charge tokens, which is basically a Glimpse 2, Glimpse 2. Again, if you have the other Regalia, Glimpse 3, Glimpse 3, Glimpse 3. So that's really cool. And now finally for the payoffs, remember your Cosmic Bolts are your payoff in this deck. However, you have some supplementary, let's say maybe win cons in this deck that will support your success, let's say. Humpty Dumpty is very cool. Every turn, you can rest it and put a buff counter on it and then glimpse up to the number of buff counters on it. This can accumulate counters and become really big, and especially with something like the other potion, the Wild Growth Potion I think it's called, you can put buff counters on this and make it really big. And it also lets you glimpses, it becomes an ally, you can attack with it. A very flexible card. We have this card here, Stellaria Shower. It doesn't have a massive payoff, but I mean we do play some Fantasias in this deck, so it's not so bad, and it's reservable, so that's worst case. Meteor Strike is like a weaker Comet Fall, however, it can be targeted destruction, so it can negate targeted option, can destroy it. So that's really cool, that's really cool. Obviously Cosmic Bolt, you play the 1 in the deck and then you generate more. Dawn's Reversal, gets more value if negated something. And finally the card I really want to show you is this card, the Ultimate, and its best home is in Pantheon. I've actually resolved this in a game and won a Pantheon game with it. I got the finisher off. It's such a cool card, and once this drops, people are gonna be sweating to kill you. So be careful when you drop it. Make sure you have a lot of defenses, and maybe especially if you can save the card's favorite card until after you drop this, even better. And this is just, if this resolves, you win the game, and you win the game in such an amazing, cool fashion basically. And I love this card, it's really cool. So yeah, that's the deck. I mean, Astra is really geared, Astra Arisanna is really geared to thrive in the Pantheon format. But remember, this is just one way of playing this deck. If you want to play the potion, brewing, herb kind of thing, filter beast, more focusing on that side of things, you can. Because of the new regalia we got, I think it's called Alchemist's Cauldron, which lets you play potions of all elements, all basic elements. In that sense, it's really cool. You can do some really cool stuff. And in that scenario, you can also, your Polaris and your Cosmic Bolts are still a viable win condition. You can still play them. Because remember, you can just generate them with Polaris. And you can basically focus less on glimpsing in that deck, and or maybe you can even balance. You can play partially herbs, partially the glimpsing side of things. Very cool stuff. Honestly, go for it. Go for it. I have not tested it yet, but I might in the future. I just need to figure out the right build for it. So yeah, that's the list. Thank you so much for watching. A like would really help us. A subscribe is even better. And if you have any changes you suggest to this list, anything I missed, honestly, Pantheon is like a kind of a free-form format. People are going to come up with different things, different ideas. Let me know in the comments. For the boons, by the way, you could replace the lesser boon with the one that says you get to basically take 4 regalias from the banish pile and put them back in your material deck. That is a viable route to take with this deck, but you need to figure out basically some reusable cards. So basically, obviously, the big one is you get to reuse Polaris, which is amazing. You use resolved in the early game, you threaten, and then you bring it out in the late game as well. So you're the guy sitting on the nuke button. Remember, Polaris is the nuke button. People, you will use this as a major bargaining piece, a major political bargaining piece. And that's that's such a cool interaction in card games, obviously. So yeah, with that bonus that I mentioned, you can reuse this card. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.